that's all. Us was great, and I loved it. I'm going to see it again, and Lupita should win Best Actress, maybe.
She should at least be nominated, you are right.
Right. I mean, like, there's 9 months to go. Maybe there will be 6 other amazing performances that are just
that be amazing?
Indisputable.
We haven't had a good year like that in a while.
But it's unlikely, and she should definitely win. At least get nominated. Winning, we have to see. But
yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
The kids were great in it. Kids are not usually great in movies like that. They were awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. You know who's not awesome? The kid upstairs.
The rhinoceros that lives above me.
Yeah. We have a young hippo that lives upstairs. And
since you said rhinoceros the one time, I can only think of
rhinoceros, yeah. It's one of those fat beasts.
Hippos.
Hippos are cuter. I don't know what that kid looks like.
Welcome once again to Know a Snark, where former religious types and current snarks take a look at religious media on its own terms.
My name is Hillary.
And I am Josh, a.k.a. UNITY.
What?
Oh, come on.
Oh, my God. It took me a second. You don't sound like her.
I know.
That's not your fault.
Yeah. And you might have noticed I changed the intro just a little bit because we have a special guest today, as we sometimes do.
Yay!
Who is it?
Hey, my name is Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Welcome.
You and Hillary have just met for the first time.
Yeah.
Not really, apparently. I met you for the first time just now, but you've already met me.
Maybe. Right. I recognized your face. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But, Hannah, since you're new, and we always do this with guests, you have to tell us anything that you'd like about yourself and, specifically, your relationship with religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were the person I was talking about a few weeks ago when I mentioned someone had texted me and said they weren't exactly sure if their religious beliefs were where we want them. And I was like, no,
we don't want them nowhere.
We don't want them anywhere. I don't care what they are at all.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to the podcast for several months and I was like, man, well, I'm not Bible bashing, but I'm also not like the lady in this film we're about to review. It's very extreme. So, yeah. Yeah, I think my beliefs have just morphed over time. And, yeah, I grew up in a really religious household with, like, a lot of strict rules about, I mean, pretty much everything, you know, lots of rules. But also, we church hopped a lot. So, went to charismatic churches, went to Baptist churches. So, you name it, we did it.
Is it here in Georgia?
No, in Texas, actually.
Okay.
Even more.
So you guys weren't like a specific denomination?
No.
Okay.
It was non-denominational.
Gotcha. So, the free thinkers of the Christian world.
Yeah. So lots of movement back and forth. So yeah. When I went to college, I think I realized like how, how crippling that was, I think. Just a lot of, traumatic experiences. Awesome. So even when I recommended this film, I was like, dang, I'm going to relive some childhood trauma.
Awesome.
But remembered incorrectly that this is actually a different film, kind of. But we'll get into that.
The other one's more extreme than this one.
Gotcha. This is one of many, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Very mild, way easier. I laughed through it. We'll get into that.
Where would you currently say your religious beliefs fall?
I would say I call myself a Christian.
Okay.
Very I find it hard to like be in Christian groups.
That's fine.
Because of religious differences.
Yeah.
Or yeah. It's very, I don't know.
Well,
cool.
Yeah, it's fluid. You have the
Fluid,
belief structure, but but you don't necessarily feel the need or enjoy the parameters other people set.
Yeah.
And me and Hannah, before you got here, were talking about it, so I figured I could go to a brief overview of mine.
Yeah.
Very simple. My dad was very religious. He told me dinosaurs didn't exist at one point because it was against his religion to believe in dinosaurs for some reason.
Same.
My mom was not particularly, though nominally. Like I said goddamn in front of her once, and she was like, don't say that. I was like, I'll do what I want, because I was 28.
You fucking rebel.
It was just the first time it had come up, I guess. But I stopped believing when I was like, I would say I was 13, but I didn't accept I had stopped believing until I was 16. because I really had strong doubts at 13 and tried to convince myself for years until I just gave up and was like, I clearly can't convince myself this is true.
And yeah, once you accept that, pretending to believe is not, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's my story, and that's it. And I went through the angry teenager phase, and then I got over it pretty quick. And have just remained fascinated by it forever.
Should I go over mine again?
If you want to.
Sure.
Also grew up with I had a semi-religious upbringing, meaning it wasn't an extreme like evangelical or fundamentalist, but the church was a big part of my childhood and my family, and a lot of the decisions that my family made, including being a part of a community that was literally built, like a huge neighborhood that was built specifically as like for members of part of this mega church in Decatur.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure I was born in Decatur. I think it's the church itself was there. Either way, Decatur, Georgia.
Okay.
And so my parents bought property. They built their own house there. All of their money went into this development. We could walk to church. Like there was a road from the neighborhood to the church. It was just incredibly interconnected and weird. And then, like most mega churches, eventually it all comes out that the leader is a fraud.
Wow.
You know, there was like money and extortion and sexual deviance and blah, blah, blah. So my parents,
She doesn't just mean gay people.
No, I mean
some
like,
church's meaning of sexual
yes.
deviance.
If you want to, look up Earl Polk. He was the leader of the church. I honestly can't remember if he's considered a pastor or a minister or a fucking priest. I have no idea. But there's a lot of information on him. It was a big deal at the time.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I clarify when she says deviant, she doesn't mean the church folks were mad because it turned out one of the assistant pastors was gay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There was deviance.
Dallying, abuse of power is really what I should be saying, just across the board. So my parents had to jump ship and left and lost all our money because they lost so much money on the house. Like we had to kind of start from zero again. And ever since then, my parents have kind of been on a quest to try, like they're still kind of figuring it out. My mom just openly said she was atheist recently, which is interesting. She grew up Catholic, then went through this situation, and now she's like, I'm atheist. I'm like,
wow.
All right.
Go mom.
Still
Dang.
like changing and growing as an adult.
Yeah. How old is she?
Inspirational 63?
Nice.
Something like that. Yeah. No, I'm not like, yay, she's atheist. I'm just like, yay, she's still thinking.
It's the changing and growing
considering,
thing.
Changing and growing.
Most people that age, honestly.
So, my life from then on was just, I did the church hopping thing. I did the seeking thing. I went to Bible camp a couple years, with a best friend of the time, and eventually came to the same conclusion Josh did, which is like, I was going through the motions and I never felt it. And even when I was a kid, it's not like I had lost something. I just thought that I was supposed to feel certain things and other people seemed like they were feeling certain things and I wanted it. And so I just accepted that that's not a part of my life and not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of envious of the people who like really like get overwhelmed with things like anything really, because I feel like such a moderate human. Like what extreme emotions feel like with this, aside from, severe depression, which isn't the fun side of extreme emotions. That's the other side. Yeah. So that's it. That's a pretty good, feels like longer than I talked about the first time.
Oh, well, we'll get more details every time.
Yeah.
I often forget that there's this weird compound you kind of dealt with.
It's fucking weird, man. My mom, who doesn't curse, just like your mom got, she calls it that damn church and has ever since we left. And that was my mom. That's my mom's curse. And that was the only one I ever heard her say, that damn church.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we begin with Hannah, and we're going to talk about this movie, before we even talk about what we're doing, let's talk about any hits and misses we might have had.
Okay. I actually have some, Josh.
Okay. Well,
this is from like 7 episodes ago.
Okay.
Number 1. I kept saying amoral when I meant immoral. It's embarrassing.
Okay.
I meant immoral, and I know there's a difference.
Do you remember what specifically the sentence was or anything?
It was like over and over again.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Because amoral is a word.
I know it is, but that's not what I meant in this context. I also threw Jaws in when we were talking about Steven Spielberg and like his influence on the 80s and the 90s or whatever. And I just was listing some Steven Spielberg. I'm like, so like they didn't have Jaws in Ready Player One is what I was talking about. Jaws is from the 70s. I know that. It's my favorite movie of all time.
But it influenced the 80s significantly.
I don't even think it's mentioned in Ready Player One, which is even more important. Cause, yeah, whatever. And this is not a hit or miss, but a research that I did because of something you were talking about. Remember we were talking about, like, how India is one of the biggest countries?
Yeah.
And you were complaining about how they were saying in the movie.
Yeah, have you met any polytheists recently?
Right. And you're like, well, there's the entire country of India.
I don't mean everyone.
I don't mean literally. No,
yeah,
but what I'm saying, like, you said it's, one of the biggest countries. It's actually the 7th largest country. But it's the 2nd biggest in population.
Right.
Behind China.
Right, because I know there's a city in India that has 1 billion people in it. So I was like, I know there's a shit ton of Indians. And obviously, India is
I know
split.
there are a shit ton of Indians.
Numerically. And, like, India has Muslims and Hindus and obviously basically any number of other types of people. But, like, yeah, there's 1 billion polytheists in the world.
Yeah. I wanted the numbers. I wanted to see the list. They're second behind, they're behind China by 1 in population and behind 6 others.
Nice. Yeah. The only thing I had to say was listening to the Save Me From Myself episode, I got so many names wrong in it.
Really?
So many.
I haven't listened to it yet.
It wasn't so much a name, but I called Brian Head the lead singer of Korn, and he was the guitarist and a backing vocalist at best.
Yeah, but we fixed that.
I know. We acknowledged all of the wrong names I got.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I'm aware, and we obviously knew at the time, I called Jermaine Stewart instead of, I called him Jermaine
Clement.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know what I was doing.
That took a long time for us to figure out, too, because I'm like, I do not think this is the right name.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know, I acknowledge that occasionally I'm not perfect, and you will never hear me say this again. So, enjoy it.
Until next week.
Until next week when I acknowledge something else I fucked up this week.
Yeah.
So, Hillary, it's time to talk about what we are doing today.
Okay.
Tell us about it.
I forgot what it's called.
It's called A Thief in the Night.
A Thief in the Night is what we watched.
Thief in the Night.
Yes, recommended by our new friend and guest, Hannah.
Yes.
You're
now,
welcome.
I want to talk a little bit about how we came to this movie.
Oh, gosh.
Do you remember?
How collectively we
Yeah.
did? So, one day at work.
Yes.
I had just met you, kind of. We had been talking about podcasts, and then one day Ethan was like, "Oh, I have a podcast." And so, anyway, I think maybe that
That's exactly how I said it, by the way. Oh, guess what? I have a podcast.
So you nailed that impression.
Either that day or, I don't know, at some point, I texted him and I was like, "Hey, I have a horrible movie from the 70s that you should review." And immediately he said, "Oh, A Thief in the Night?" And he already knew.
God. Dork.
She
You're dork
said,
for the weirdest things.
I remember, not
think
verbatim, but I remember most of what you said was, there was this movie from the 70s and it traumatized me as a kid.
Yeah.
And so maybe you could do that. And then I knew immediately it was The Thief in the Night. Yes.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
And I was like, "This was perfect."
Honestly, when I saw that it was from the 70s, I got stoked.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then,
that's
of
a different
course,
level of bad.
I have since drawn her in to do it with us.
Yay.
So here she is.
Yep.
Talking about at least the first part of A
We
Thief in the
haven't had a
Night.
guest in a while, and I like having guests.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, as with always, I'll give you a really quick overview of the movie for the audience. It is an apocalypse movie about the rapture, as always.
Yeah.
Let's just move on. We've seen so many of them by now.
And the Left Behind people acknowledge that, or the people who, like, whoever it was that wrote the books acknowledge that this movie inspired them. The truth is, they just ripped off this movie. Exactly this.
Yeah. Yep.
Including the long-windedness, anyway.
Yeah, that's true. So let's describe this movie in one sentence.
Okay.
I am ready.
You go first, Josh.
Okay, so watching this, I thought of my one sentence is one thing. What the fuck am I doing? My one sentence is this. It's a movie that makes it very clear, and me very happy, that we killed the 70s in the 70s.
Yeah, there's a reason that was, like, the golden age of serial killers.
Yeah, we just left
This
the
is
70s.
the kind of media they had. People were, the only entertainment you could really do is just murder.
The 70s were left behind in 79, and hopefully we don't talk about them anymore. That's, I guess, 80?
Except for, that's literally what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I know.
You know, after this.
After this.
After this episode, nobody has to mention the 70s again.
That's right.
Hannah.
I don't even have a sentence.
You
The
don't
one
have a
word that just
One word.
kept coming up was, "This is so terrible."
Terrible.
Yeah.
That's really my word.
That
Terrible.
works. That works
Yeah.
very well. I never solidified my sentence. But I'm gonna say here in this moment, 70s porn for Christians.
Oh, nice. Okay.
If you know 70s porn, it's just a lot of backlighting.
Yeah, a lot of mustaches.
A lot of mustaches.
A lot of weird groans.
Long periods of no sound or anything interesting happening. Yeah.
Yeah. 70s were weird. Porn was weird. Everything's
I'm so
weird.
glad I wasn't of age in the 70s.
Yeah, that's true.
We got the 90s, man.
We're going to talk about this because I have words about the people in this movie. So let's talk about the beginning of this movie. It starts with a clock ticking very noisily, and a quote from Jesus appears, and it is, "Keep a sharp lookout, for you do not know when I will come, at evening, at midnight, early, dawn, or late daybreak. Don't let me find you sleeping."
Fucking serial killer.
Serial killer Jesus. Because it's a quote from Jesus.
Yeah.
And the clock...
That sounds like a message left on somebody's answering machine from the Golden State Killer.
Or that the Axeman from Louisiana.
Don't let me catch you sleeping. Oh yeah, the Axeman.
I honestly expected it to show like a Bible verse or a reference. It just says Jesus Christ.
Like Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the clock is indicated to be next to a radio. And that gives us an update of the situation because we open in media res, where stuff's happening. And all over the world, thousands, if not millions of people have simply disappeared. And our main character, Patty, awakens to this radio that's telling her about all this horrible stuff. And she seems to be having a rough morning because, like, even when she's like waking up, she's like cracking her neck and like pulling on her face.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, everything.
That's what I look like waking up. So I'd appreciate you not making fun of it.
But she eventually gets out of bed and she goes to track down her husband and child. I think they have a child.
They don't have a child.
I don't think they do.
Just her husband.
Do you not remember the 25-minute?
I do. But
they never show her pregnant.
No, so I looked for that and I was waiting for it, but I swear she goes into a kid's room when she's looking for people.
I don't
know.
think she does.
That's just what their adults' rooms look like in the 70s?
I don't remember what the rooms looked like, but I remember
it was a kid's room. I guarantee.
I do not think it was a kid's room.
No.
It looked like a kid's
that
room.
montage should not have one moment.
No, I agree.
Child, yeah.
They never mentioned a kid ever again. I just could have sworn that she walked into a small child's
Well,
room.
let's watch it again. Bring it up.
I was just distracted by the angles at which they were filming, where it's like really high above her head and like she's running to the house rapidly.
I just said this dude loves clever transitioning. Like, it was like creative transitions were his fucking jam.
Yeah.
And most of them involved some weird, we'll talk about some specifics, but really weird angles, you're right.
Yeah.
But we find her husband's razor just buzzing away in the sink, and she realizes that she's alone, and that her husband has disappeared alongside millions of others in the world. And so she's obviously very upset.
She does whatever anyone would do. Blood-curdling scream.
And then she...
It cuts away. It's her looking at the razor, like, just on, like, the electric razor just in the sink. And then it cuts away to nothing. And then you just hear this scream, which, in my mind, I just imagine the razor attacking her. Because that's what it sounded like.
Maximum Overdrive.
Exactly. Good reference.
But she goes into their bedroom, which apparently is not a small child's room, and just weeps on the bed. And then we cut away to a group of weird-looking people from the 70s reading from a Bible about some of the same rapture stuff that the movie's about.
No one is camera-friendly. Not one face in this movie is camera-friendly.
They're so strange
It's so... Oh my gosh.
Okay. We've heard all the Raptors quotes and stuff before on this podcast. If you want to hear it, I don't know, go listen to the first episode.
Yeah.
Because it was left behind and it was about this too.
Yes.
But basically, some people are going to be taken away by Jesus into heaven before the bad things happen.
While they're sleeping.
While they're sleeping, while they're awake, while they're mowing the lawn.
The way the opening quote is, it just makes it seem like he's waiting for you to fall asleep. Yeah, it's kind of like very Nightmare on Elm Street. Don't fall asleep, Jesus will get you.
And everyone is very, like Hillary said, awkward looking. And it's like they don't know they're being filmed. Because no one is trying to look even remotely presentable.
Correct.
Like, if you like to say you have resting bitch face, right?
Yeah.
I assume if you're on a camera, you try to like brighten it up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
You're in a movie.
Right, you're in a movie that's going to go out to the world.
At least, like, cock your head. Make it look like you're listening or thinking about it.
Like, there's people, like, asleep. There's someone, I'm pretty sure, who's just doing drugs in their chair.
There are women in the background who look like they are pissed.
Right. It's like, my fucking husband made me come to this stupid shoot.
And the preachy guy has bozo hair, like the blonde kid, where he's getting me up having baldness, but also has a white boy fro.
Yeah.
But only on the sides, and then a swoopy bit. And nobody told him to, like, brush his hair, or, like,
comb it over.
Maybe get a little trim up before you end up on a film.
But that's fine. He's been immortalized now as Bozo Preacher. And then we get the weirdest fucking musical interlude I've ever seen in my life.
It's so weird and creepy. I can understand why you're traumatized, Hannah. Yeah. I'm so glad I watched this as an adult.
That theme song, just, you know...
It was stuck in my head for a fair amount of time last night.
As I was listening to it, I'm like, oh my god, it's getting traced into my mind right now. Make it stop.
Do you remember how it goes, either of you?
Oh, I can do it, but I'm going to do it in 1 sec.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to explain what Bozo Preacher was talking about. He says, the Bible says that in the twinkling of an eye, millions of people will disappear, and a shocked world will discover that what the Bible said is true. So if you haven't given your life to Christ, now's your chance, because he'll come back to earth as a thief in the night. That's the name of the movie. But yes, then the song starts. And first off, and I'm going to make annoying noise for the mic right now, the drums are...
Yes.
Prepare Jumanji.
Yes, exactly.
And there's a bunch of stupid lyrics, but they're very, very basic. It's like, 2 men are climbing a hill. One is gone and the other is standing still. Yeah. Yes. I wish we'd all been ready.
That's right.
That's right.
In the Nicolas Cage Left Behind, this was the song I was talking about at the end, that Jordan Sparks recorded a cover of.
She covered this song?
She covered this song.
Shut up!
But then they played a different version in the actual end credits for the movie. But
I remember that
song.
Conversation.
This is that song.
I did not know that was the
song.
That's so scary. Oh my god, one of the girls too was like S&M clown.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about? She had the billowy white shirt under the black leather vest, and she was frumpy and had no pops. Like her posture was just like snoop.
And then part of the sort of bigger chorus, instead of I wish we'd all been ready, is there's no time to change your mind. The sun has come and you've been left behind.
Name of the other movie.
Yeah.
So that's the song. And then the musical break is over, and we begin hearing horrifying laughter coming over a broken loudspeaker. Do you remember this?
Vaguely, yes.
Oh, I don't.
Because we're at a fair now, and it's like, I think, the clown ride.
Yeah.
It's like,
There's like a theme through this, actually. Clown man, S&M clown girl, clown.
Right, that makes terrifying sounds.
This is what fun was in the 70s.
Yeah, but it's like someone recorded someone laughing, but then the speaker sort of has a connection loose, and so it's scary now.
A horrifying decade.
And if it was supposed to be scary, that would be one thing, but I think it's supposed to be like, oh, they're having fun.
Joyful.
And so we meet our 3 main characters, really. This is Patty, who was the main woman from the first scene.
She's the screamer.
She's the screamer. And then there's Ginny, and there's Diane. And they're all friends, and they talk about the creepy Bible meeting they were just at with Bozo Preacher Man. And Diane and Patty aren't really sold yet on the preacher boy talk. But even though Patty considers herself a believer, she's like, I go to church sometimes, I read my Bible occasionally. It's just, I'm not sold on this rapture thing. That doesn't make sense.
This character has existed in almost every movie we've seen.
Right. And Ginny, though, she's very convinced. And so she's going to go back to hear more.
We know she's a good girl because she's a brunette and has pigtails.
Yeah. Makes her good.
There's a lot of stuff about the 70s in this movie.
Yeah. Yep.
But we cut back between Patty and Diane at the fair versus Ginny going back to church to talk about stuff. And basically, Ginny gets converted, whereas Patty and Diane meet 2 boys who are Frankensteinian monsters.
Yep. Fascinating looks. Fascinating.
And I had to question. I was like, are all of the men in the 70s this horrifying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they are treated in this movie, so they are very attractive.
Yeah, these are some hunks that they picked up at the fair.
Yeah, they come at these 2 women, and they're just like, ooh, look at those cute boys. We should talk to them. Yeah. I'm just like, ah!
They literally walk up to them, and they're like, I want to ride that ride. And the next thing, they're like, my new boyfriend. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
Y'all move quick.
I think when one of them is meeting the girl, he like puts his arm around
does,
her
yeah.
shoulders, like,
He does.
"Hey,
Luckily-
come on a ride with me."
And he's the real monster in the movie. He's a
He's
horrifying
a
looking
nightmare
man.
looking man. By the way, like they both have like the weird 70s ripped bodies, meaning like everybody in the 70s seemed to have some sort of beach body.
Yeah.
I'm guessing because of all the hitchhiking and walking.
Yeah. But also like...
But what was his facial hair? I paused
It was
the
like
movie.
big-ass mutton chops.
It was like mutton
Yeah.
chops attached to a mustache, but just a mustache.
Yeah.
I was trying to find, I spent too long on this, trying to find the name, because you know how like every mustache has a name?
Yeah.
Could find nothing. It was like, it's somewhere close to, it's like an imperial mixed with a mutton chop, or there's some man from history that had one, but it was more of like a chin strap mixed with mutton chop. Honestly, it gave me nightmares.
Yeah, it's,
just the
it's
research
awful.
itself.
It's terrifying. And he was a weird-looking fella.
Yeah.
And I know we're trying to be nice to the actors.
We are
but
trying. There's a good chance he's dead. It's fine.
Yeah, he's probably dead. But it scared me. And I
Yeah.
was like, why is anyone treating this man as though he's anything except scary?
Everyone was so much easier to kill back then. They were just so trusting. This guy
Also-
gave me all of the red flags.
I also feel like everyone, like you were talking about the beach body of the 70s,
Yeah.
is also one of those, you know, like tough guys from the 40s.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, I'm in really good shape. But then they just,
The
they
ones that take-
exhale. and they're,
All of their weight is in their chest because they're sucking in so hard.
so that's kind of what they reminded me of. Because it's like, you know we can see you.
Right, yeah. If you challenge me to fisticuffs, the mustache fits with that character too.
Yeah.
It's like, hop, 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 hop.
Yeah.
But okay, so they meet, the only one of you that's important is Jim. That's gonna be Patty's boyfriend. He's wearing a fucking cowboy hat in this scene.
Yeah, which is, cowboy hat in this scene, and then no shirt in most other scenes.
Right.
Yes.
He also has a scary face.
But yeah, so Ginny gets converted, whereas the other guy is, like I said, he's just super spookier. And they go on a helicopter ride while Ginny ends up converted. So I had a question here because it's like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to pull from this chain of events. Mm-hmm. Because it looks to me like one group is having fun living their life and the other is having a whole lot of guilt put on them.
Yes.
About how Jesus died
Fear.
for her sins.
So much fear.
Yeah.
Fear and guilt
So we're like,
shoved down their throats, and willingly.
so we're supposed to say, that's what I want. The
Yeah.
fear and the guilt.
Yeah.
Not the fun helicopter ride with my friends.
I want to make sure I feel like I don't deserve that fun helicopter ride.
I guess.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if the helicopter crashes, that's at least an example. Like if they get in it and
Right.
there's a Twilight
Something
Zone type
bad.
accident where like 2 people die inside and the blades cut the heads off the other people outside, that would be something.
Yeah, the helicopter pilot should have been one of the ones to disappear in the Rapture. And then
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
But whatever, we're going to move on because it's been a few days now. And Ginny is told by one of her new Christian friends that she'll soon run into difficulty for choosing to turn her life over to Christ. So she needs to hold strong and continue being super cool by talking to Jesus very often and borrowing the power of heaven to overcome Satan's influence. And there's these long sequences in this movie of people just talking this sort of nonsense.
Very
Actually, just long sequences in general. All sequences are too long.
That's true.
Doesn't matter what's happening, and many things happen.
And like, I don't necessarily care or mind. It's just like, why does this have to take so long? I don't need to hear this for 5 minutes.
70s.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed all of their voices are so weird.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a 70s thing or a Christian movie thing or both, but the lady who was at the church with Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh, just talked like this creepy person. Like,
So
why? I would run.
It was creepy and also kind of high-pitched and whiny at the same time.
You'd be like, look, I like kind of agree with everything you're saying, but can I talk to someone else who doesn't sound insane?
Maybe text me.
You have telegraphs here? Can you telegraph me? Okay. But yeah, so they were talking about that, and then Patty comes by, and she invites the whole group to go water skiing with her and Jim, her new boyfriend. And so now we have to
Patty's
watch...
the slutty one. She's the one who's
No,
dating.
Diane's a slutty one.
Diane's the I thought... Patty was the one. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. Diane's the slutty one.
Yeah, we'll learn more about Diane the slut later.
Yeah. Blonde chair.
But I think it was Patty that invited them, right?
It is. You're right.
Okay.
Yes.
But Diane's going to be there with her, again, Frankensteinian monster of a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to watch them water ski.
For a while.
And honestly, I had seen this movie before. I did not know what the point was yet.
No.
I had forgotten enough where I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what am I even watching?
Very long.
And I didn't realize we were flashbacked yet, so I was truly confused.
Yeah. That took me a while to realize, like, from the opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a point in this where I assumed every girl we'd seen so far was a new character instead of the one from the first scene. So I had to go back and edit my notes to be like, it was Patty the whole time.
I mean, they all look kind of similar.
They all look similar, which means I can't tell them apart, which
Right.
means I thought it was different people.
Right.
So I'm like, she looks like the other one, but like they all look the same to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just have different hairstyles, which is helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so we watched the water skiing, and that's really fun. And then Patty and Ginny and Diane all have a conversation about religious stuff with Ginny's religious friends. And Diane is a full-on unbeliever. That's what we learn. She's just not buying it. While Patty is simply unconvinced.
Yeah.
Then
It's the three bears of Christian.
That's right. So we get lots of preaching happening and dire warnings about the future. And it's incredibly droll.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually they talk about, the beast that will rise from the sea and take over the world. And then Diane's terrifying boyfriend is like, says something about him being the beast.
Yeah, they get sexual real quick.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, good thing I love monsters or something.
Yeah.
And they get weirdly sexual
Intimate.
in front of all their friends.
Their Christian friends at that.
Is this the same scene where the bozo preacher is wearing the short shorts and also just in that seated position where his leg is up?
Oh, yeah, he is.
There's a weird denim money shot happening with him that's impossible to look away from and haunting.
You're like, oh.
Yeah.
This sort of makes me glad sometimes, because when I'm watching these movies in long, talky nonsense scenes like this, I tend to be typing rather than watching.
Yeah.
So I did not notice his look at my bulge moments.
It was so uncomfortable.
I saw his outfit, but I didn't see more than that.
Yeah.
Which was good. Good for me.
Yeah, I have a tendency to not listen when they're talking about nonsense and then just start paying attention to the background characters and outfits.
Same. What's really going on?
This is why.
Let's break this down.
This is why the show works. Because we have always said we do different things.
Yeah. I notice very different things than you.
You're a background acting, that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm a plotter messaging sort of.
Yes.
So I'm like, what are they trying to say? And we're like, did you see this bizarre thing in the background?
You saw the S&M Clown Girl, right?
Which is great.
I gotta find a picture for that for Instagram.
Absolutely.
It's rough.
Okay, so... Oh, and then they're now talking about the mark of the beast. And so now we're given more information about basically, and I am quoting, the super evil credit card that won't allow anyone to buy or sell without it. Because you're going to have to get the mark either on your forehead or your hand, as we have heard in, 12 movies we've done so far?
I'm just gonna say the last year of my life.
The last year of your life.
Yeah.
And so don't do that, because if you get the mark, you can't go to heaven. And then we have to cut to listening to a preacher preach about, this is Patty's preacher. This is why she's not a true believer. And he preaches about how the Bible is basically a metaphor that doesn't really matter. And it's all pretty boring, the scene is, but it's somewhat reasonable, because he's basically saying that, what you believe doesn't matter so much as who you are and what you do and how you affect people. Mm-hmm. And you can tell he's the bad guy of the movie because he's making a relative amount of sense.
Yeah.
As we've seen multiple times. Remember the movie we watched where the bad guy was trying to build affordable housing?
No. Which one was that?
Brother White.
Ugh.
They were going to tear down the church because it was behind on its lease and it couldn't pay it.
Right.
And it was basically had 4 people that ever went to it anyway.
Yeah.
And his big evil plan, and it was portrayed this way, was build affordable housing for people. Like Section 8 housing, which is not a money-making scheme.
No.
So they were like, he's the worst. He's going to build affordable housing for poor black folks.
Right. They liken it to the company was knocking down Fern Gully.
Yeah. So it's every time you can see someone being somewhat reasonable, you're like, this is the bad guy in this movie.
He must be evil.
Am I missing anything? Anybody have any words?
No, I mean, I think when he was up there, I was like, oh, he's making the most sense so far out of this whole movie.
That's how you know. You haven't done this enough.
But I didn't think that he would end up being the bad guy.
Nope, he's the bad guy because he makes too much sense. He's very evil and he's false prophet-y. That's what you got to know. Mm-hmm. A false prophet, not prophet-y. I was doing a thing, but I hadn't established the word yet.
Profiting with PH.
Right. And bad news for one guy, and I believe this is Jim. It took me a while because again, could not tell anybody in this movie apart. he works with some animals, and some of them are snakes, and one of them is a cobra.
He's a terrible zoologist.
He opens the cage, and then he just doesn't bother closing.
Did we see him open the cage?
No, I don't know how
Because in my mind, the snake opened the cage. We've been waiting for this moment.
Probably. But the cobra gets out.
Or Harry Potter's close by.
But the snake gets out. It's sort of flares up and it's very angry. And Jim doesn't notice it, so he gets bit by a snake. Predictable. Except there's this really amusing edit where did you see this?
Yes.
He starts to, you tell it.
What I wrote down, after just noticing how much this director loves his transitions, I just wrote, like, my favorite transition so far is ambulance scream.
Yes.
Because this guy gets bit. And he stands up and lets out a scream, but there is no scream. It's an ambulance siren. But you hear the ambulance siren coming out of his mouth before it transitions to you seeing the ambulance, and it was hilarious.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
I had that moment where I was like, what the Oh, it's an ambulance. Okay, good.
It was so loud.
It's a cyborg!
Yeah, it's like,
I had to turn my TV down because my roommate was in the other room. I'm like, oh gosh.
My brother came downstairs and couldn't figure out why I was laughing so hard.
But now, Jim is going to need a blood transfusion from a survivor of the same type of snake.
After a very good, very, very medical explanation.
Yeah.
He's allergic to horse tranquil, like, whatever it was. It was like...
He can't take antivenom, or they may not have it or something.
They have antivenom involving a horse somehow.
Yeah.
And that's what he's allergic to. So he can't get antivenom.
So he's going to need a blood transfusion from someone who's been bitten by a snake like this and survived so that he can get the antibodies for the venom.
Luckily, Steve Irwin lived out, like, a couple blocks away.
Here I come.
He's like, we have a guy who owns a farm full of snakes. He gets bit every day.
Yeah, so he's going to have to hope that he gets there in time or he won't make it through the night. And it's so terrible. And we're so upset. And so Jenny is there because she's supporting her friend Patty, whose boyfriend was bitten by a snake. And she prays for her friend's favorite monster. And we wallow in anticipation as we wait to see if he will live. So there's a dramatic scene where a preacher comes into the room and prays over Jim as the Steve Irwin from down the street gets in a helicopter and rides to the thing real fast.
Yeah, helicopter number 2. They had a helicopter budget.
And the preacher just prays to God that this poor Jim fellow will just get one more chance. And of course, their prayers work because this apparently herpetologist appears and gives him the blood that he needs. So Jim doesn't die, basically. And Patty, this is my favorite part actually, because Patty is told that Jim is going to live. He's going to be just fine. He just needs a little time to recover. And she comes inside and she just sort of like touches him slightly on the head. And she's like, I'm so happy you're okay. And it's like, what? Don't bother having this conversation.
She's the one who released the snake. Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah.
She was hoping to get a lot of sympathy for her dead boyfriend.
That would make sense, because she does not seem remotely excited about his
No,
his
their
life.
chemistry is in the negatives.
Yeah.
But of course, now Jim shows up at church the next day, at a real church, and he can't quite explain why, but he just felt filled with such peace after the preacher came to see him and prayed over him.
Probably because of the blood transfusion. That feels a lot better.
So now he just wants to, research that a little bit more. And so he goes to a proper church. And he gets, basically sold on the Jesus thing and Antichrist stuff because this is the good preacher, the crazy guy who only preaches about brimstone and sulfur and how you're
fun church.
How you're going to die on earth and in hell unless you take Jesus now. All that stuff. The good stuff. And he's in, but Patty is still, resisted the strong appeal of Jesus. And so we get this really weird cutaway, because I did not know whose child this was, where there's this small child and she comes home and she looks around for her mom and can't find her. And she notices a boiling pot on the stove.
Well, we had seen her, she'd been in church and she looked horrified.
Okay.
As any child would be.
Yeah.
Hannah, can you speak to
Terrified.
this?
Yes.
This is terrifying to hear as a kid. If you, you have no reason not to believe what this guy is saying. And it is hellacious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I think they pan over and her eyes are like bulging out. She's
Right.
like, "Ah!"
Then she goes home.
Okay. And there's a boiling pot on the stove, but her mom's not around. So she freaks out, I think justifiably.
Yeah.
And starts crying.
Right.
Because she's like, oh shit, my mom's gone and I've been left behind. But of course, her mom has not been raptured yet.
She's just a bad cook.
She's just a bad cook. And so her mom and I guess her grandma come in. They You're fine.
More weird
Everything's
voices,
fine.
by the way. Did you, like,
Yeah.
these women, the little girl screaming, like, I thought you were gone!
Another blood curdling.
And they're like, gone where? I thought you were gone! Gone where?
Just gone.
It went on way too long.
Yeah. But now the little girl has gone through a horrifying experience, but it would not go the way she thought, so she converts to Jesus' army. So now, if she does get taken away, she'll go with her mom.
Yep.
And that's good.
Yes.
Check that one.
Lesson learned.
And now Patty
Terrified children into submission.
Yep.
So Patty and her monster go ahead and get married, and we're only halfway through. And I timed it, because I often do. Hillary knows this.
Yes.
I check the timers on everything.
I love it. He did the math.
It's because I get so tired of watching them.
I know. And actually,
I did the same thing.
did you?
Yeah, I'm like, 45 minutes.
Occasionally I'll think about doing it and like, Josh will do it.
I will.
I'm like, I wonder how long this has been going on. I bet Josh knows.
Yeah, I do the breakdowns.
Yeah.
All right, so a montage follows, and this is something Hillary alluded to earlier. Because it is, I swear, a 20-minute montage.
Right. And I don't know if this
So
is
long.
is this the original montage?
This is the only one I think
No,
they have.
in history.
Oh.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to do them yet?
Yeah, because it's not a montage so much it is as still shots.
Yeah, of several
Yeah.
Yeah.
pointless
Photos.
scenes.
Of pointless scenes right next to each other too, so it's just like that, them talking. Them laughing. Still on the same couch, still same outfit, nothing new.
Yeah.
Maybe the next day.
Yeah.
Them talking and laughing. Holding something.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
a montage is supposed to establish, usually a lot of things happening in a long time span, but you do it quickly.
Right. This maybe it was a week in their life, showing
Yeah.
over 25
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
This could have been a literal weekend.
Yeah.
And nothing would have been different
They
about
look the
movie.
same. I expected
Yeah.
her to become pregnant at some point, like we
Right.
talked about
Same.
earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But no, they just
Nope.
have a nice life.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to get from this extremely long,
Yeah.
monotonous, bad music montage.
Yeah. It seemed like just a lot of like what are those things called online where it's just like stock photos?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It just seemed like
Collections.
a lot of stock photos back to back. A lot of laughing at nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that stock photo that became that meme where the guy is looking at the girl and his girlfriend's yelling at him is
Yeah.
a series of stock photos about that exact subject?
No way.
Where it starts with them in a relationship and they're happy and then things break down over time and then they get a divorce and all this. You can look it
I
up.
want to watch
It's
that movie.
It's an entire series of stock photos and it's, I think, 100.
Oh my
and
God.
it tells the story of this relationship falling apart.
Well, that's what
Wow.
I'm doing later. No, I did not know about that.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens next. Because after the montage, Jim's pastor, I think, one of his religious buddies, is talking to Jim about all this stuff. And Patty, Jim asks her, I guess because he's really trying to lure her in for a trap, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's just giving them beverages. He's like, Patty, what do you think about this kind of thing? She's like, I don't know. I'm not really sold on it. So, of course, we get another religious conversation. And it's basically about how, this is my least favorite line, God made us for himself so that he might enjoy us,
Nope.
so that we might enjoy him, and also we might enjoy each other.
Freezing,
I was
Pastor.
I literally have in parentheses, gross.
It was so icky.
Meanwhile, I noticed as the pastor's talking, Patty keeps looking at her husband like,
Like giving him the
are you really believing this right now? Like, don't do it!
we're supposed to be a team.
You framed me. You set me up.
You're right. She does do that.
But yeah, so we eventually get this conversation, and Patty has not... What has Patty done?
Little.
But Patty is screwed because she didn't choose God. And Patty doesn't think you have to get hung up on this kind of thing, but Preacher Man insists that she does. And so now we realize that the snakebite incident in the movie, in the script, was an intentional metaphor so that Jim would understand that he needed the blood of another man if he hoped to live. And that man is now Jesus if he hopes to be saved.
Wait,
It's
what?
like-
it's a metaphor?
It's like the dam! And he's completely blown away by this. He's
M.
like,
Night Shyamalan.
but he's ready to fully accept this version of Jesus now. But Patty is still sort of left out. And I have to give him at least a little bit of credit, because at least the metaphor in the script works.
Yes.
It only works in this one scenario that would not apply to most people.
Right.
And they came up with a convoluted reason why he couldn't just have regular anti-venom.
Right. And they took up a very large portion of this movie just watching him lay in bed with poison in him.
But it does make sense that it would appeal to him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to write a script, it's supposed to be nice and tight.
Yeah.
It's like 12 Angry Men, right? It's a great movie.
Yes.
It's a really good movie. But every argument is clearly won by the guy who's right, because it's a script. And they're like, I'm not going to leave this open-ended, okay? Like,
Yeah.
So there's a little, some nice, convenient phrasings.
That was well constructed and edited correctly.
Right.
12 Angry Men.
Yeah. This movie is not, but I can at least give credit to that one, like, element of the plot that they brought back.
You've done a kindness. It won't be forgotten.
Yeah, remember me, Jesus. So we're back to the weird little girl who assumed that her mom had been captured. And she's now going to head next door to borrow...
Captured.
I wrote raptured, but I read captured.
I like that so much better.
I didn't even notice.
We got her.
Jesus.
She's under a net somewhere.
I like to think Jesus is like one of those guys who can pull a tablecloth out without disturbing the stuff.
Totally, yeah.
He preps his hands.
The least he can do.
Yeah, he does one of these and he just snatch, and you leave your clothes behind. Okay. Although in this movie you don't.
Leave your clothes behind?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't leave your clothes behind, but you do leave running equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Electronics, mowers.
God is a bit clean, but he also doesn't mind the havoc that will be sought by a lawnmower or a bus or a...
If I took anything away from this, is that just don't use electronics and you won't get... Or definitely use electronics to get raptured.
Yeah, no one will even notice.
Right.
Okay, so the little girl is going to borrow some butter while everyone else goes about their morning routines. There's a guy mowing a lawn. Who cares? It's just a bunch of people doing nonsense.
Right.
And these many dramatic scenarios are set up as we look to the sky, because clearly something is going to happen.
A God-shaped cloud.
Yeah, I kept panning back to the cloud.
It was just a single cloud.
Why?
I know.
Is it going to turn into a cross? Or...
Oh my gosh, what if it just grew a face?
Just molded.
Wow, the first time I did mushrooms, I thought I saw God in clouds, and then he pointed to me and started talking, but I couldn't hear him, and it made me so upset. It's like he's telling me secrets, and I cannot hear it.
As the camera pans across the sun, so we get a nice original solar flare, some good lens flare, we realize that all of those dramatic scenarios have ended with the disappearance of the characters on screen. Mm-hmm. Oh, and they did this stupid thing with the little girl because she was like, okay, I'll go ask her for some butter, but like, don't disappear without me.
Yeah.
And the mom's like, if I disappear, you're coming with.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck this. Who has this? What kind of bizarre shit are you teaching your children that you have this conversation on the regular?
Yeah. You leave the house and immediately I'm like, there's a chance I will never see my mom again.
Yeah.
Every day.
But the kids are gone. The kid obviously disappeared. Her mom disappeared. We watch a lawnmower run by itself. We watch her baking mixer thing. Yeah. It's stupid.
We see a little girl's ice cream cone on the ground or something.
It's like a doll? I thought it was a doll.
Oh, it was a doll, you're right.
Whatever. It could be ice cream.
Maybe I just want ice cream.
Yeah. And so this is when I finally realized that the entire movie has been a flashback. Because we're showing how Patty's life has been getting up to where we were.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But now she's here and it's just, she's screwed.
Yeah.
So we find her back in her room languishing, hoping that her husband would show up. And now we have a United Nations representative introducing us to the newfound government of the whole world. Unite. And they have absolute control over the world and all of the governments until the emergency, as they're calling it, has been resolved. And they assure us that they represent our feelings and our needs because they have 10 members from 10 major world powers with 6 committees with 6 members each. And I was like, this sounds complicated. Why are you telling us this?
666, Josh.
But it's not even 666. It's 10, 10, 6, 6.
6, 6, 6, 4, 6, 4.
Because I had the same thing. I was like, if I multiply these together, do I get 6, 6? No, not really.
I guess you're right. I just assumed there was another 6 that I missed.
No, yeah, I don't think so. Because I checked it again. I was like, no, he's just explaining too much.
Oh, okay. Well, awesome.
But they are here to help. Because as we know, the United Nations has now and always has had the ability to simply take over the government of any participating nation. So be aware, boogity boogity. The United Nations have always been the bad guys. Mm-hmm. At any point, they can simply declare themselves in charge of your country. That's how it's always worked.
That's why I have a bunker.
Like, I know we've talked about it before, but why are people so fucking paranoid about the United Nations?
I have no idea. Well, for the same, I mean, I'm paranoid about everything. I know. I mean, I'm not even paranoid. I'm just like, I'm accepting that things are shit.
Yeah.
And the United Nations are like the better of the shit.
Yeah, but like anybody who
makes sense for what we have.
Anybody who's done literally the minimum amount of political science study,
right,
will tell you that the United Nations, if not well-intentioned, is a relatively ineffectual organization that doesn't have the influence that it or really anyone would like because it has no power.
Right.
So at best, it gives strong suggestions.
Right.
And
in
that's,
a circle.
And that's useless in the real world. So why is every one of these movies that involves the United Nations about how they're going to take over the planet? It's not even possible.
Very good point, Josh. Very good.
Like, at least add a contrivance about how this or that got passed and changed, and then
it's like the conspiracy theorists who are obsessed with the idea of, Illuminati or secret organizations. I'm like, at best, they are wearing robes, enchanting together, and probably having an orgy. Yeah. They are achieving nothing. No one's actually pulling strings anywhere. This world is chaos.
Yeah. But okay, I just wanted to talk about it because it's a constant refrain, and it never made sense.
Right.
And even, like, modern Ted Cruz, a couple years ago.
Zodiac Killer, go on.
Ted Cruz, the Zodiac Killer, a couple years ago, was talking about how the United Nations Jade Helm 23 was going to take over the United States and put people in the Hobbit homes. True story. You should ask him about it. He's insane.
No, you can do that research. I refuse to spend my time listening to anything Ted Cruz or other politicians say.
Just made up nonsense about how Obama's going to let the United Nations take over the planet. And no one has ever accounted for the fact that he was obviously either insane or lying.
Yeah.
Because if you believed
we need to stop giving very severely mentally disabled people.
Yeah.
Okay. Or I should mental illness afflicted people microphones.
But, that's, I just wanted
this podcast notwithstanding.
But of course, things move very quickly. And so Unite, the government of the world, demands that everyone go to a special identification center so they can get their special tattoo on their hand or their forehead. Uh-oh. Ermagerd! So, of course, Patty mostly avoids getting hers because she has heard about it. She's like, I don't know if I want to do that. But she ends up going into town looking to buy some clothes or some food. And everywhere says that you have to be a citizen if you're going to buy here. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can only know if you're a citizen if you have your mark.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the old man who got his mark. It was hilarious.
Which was his exact quote? Do you remember?
Because there was a woman who went before and she got on the hand.
Yeah, she's like, does it come off or is it permanent?
It's like, it's permanent, ma'am.
It's permanent. She's like, the hand, I guess. This is the weird voices. That's the best I could do.
Yeah. But the guy comes up, same thing, head or before the guy even asks.
Yeah. He walks up all cocky.
He's like, you can put that right on my forehead. I'm not ashamed to be a citizen of the world or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, all right,
man.
And the instrument they use, I'm like, what?
It is
what
an electric
is that?
razor.
Yeah, it's just
they hold up an electric razor to somebody's hand or forehead, and then go bzzz.
They're like branding,
and then they take it away, and it is clearly a stamp. It has the outline of the stamp.
Yeah, it looks like a stamp. Yeah. So just say it's a stamp.
It's a little bit smudged.
Like, are they really getting tattoos? Because I was actually hurt.
Right. Oh yeah, Hannah didn't tell us that she's covered in ink.
A little bit.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Thanks.
Hillary has some ink too.
Yeah, mine are bad.
I'm inkless.
And I want more, but I can't justify spending the money. I want pretty ones like you. But instead, I have memories.
Literally, the only reason I don't have tattoos is because I'm cheap.
Yeah. It's the only reason I don't have a full 2 sleeves, probably. I have that many plans already.
It's like going off and getting tattoos cost money that I could spend on other stuff. So
I got these piercings because I was craving tattoos and I could afford this more than I could afford. Yeah.
$40 versus like $300.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do 40.
Okay.
Exactly.
But yeah, so a crazy old man gets a tattoo on his forehead. And Patty, she can't buy stuff. So we see these really long lines that are existing at the ID centers. And eventually Patty finds herself in one of them because she's like, well, I can't buy anything. I may as well get this mark so I can actually participate in commerce. But fortunately for her, she's distracted by a friend who drives past them and says, "Hi, Patty."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my God, let me go run after that car."
Yeah.
That's what happened.
I know.
So she chases after them and it saves her soul.
Did you notice the ID centers are at the church?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
I was like, it's a church.
Yeah.
I thought it might not be on purpose. Like, maybe it's like...
Oh, no, definitely on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everybody that goes to the church is not there anymore, so it's just a vacant building.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I also wanted to note, so when she was going to those stores and the sign was up where it said like citizens only or something, did it not remind y'all of those signs that used to be in store windows that said whites only?
Yeah. No,
or
that was totally
Germans
on purpose.
That was
only,
definitely on
like,
purpose.
you know, back in
Germans
World
only,
War
yeah.
II, you know.
No Jews, no colors, all
Yeah.
those terrible, yeah. Or no hippies was a big one for a while.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, especially like in San Francisco when they started like infiltrating, like the disease that they were.
Yeah.
Nobody with long hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a song
Watch
called
out for them.
Signs, I think it's either from the late 60s, early 70s. Signs everywhere, signs. That should be the theme song.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was definitely on purpose.
Interesting. Yeah.
One thing I want to go ahead and give this movie some credit for. Because almost everything we've seen about this subject has been derivative of this, I think we have to give it some credit for doing the most work as far as making the
Entire plot and yeah.
like making the metaphor work
Right.
and their script being not tight because it's got half an hour you could cut out easily, but like making it all have something to do with something,
Right.
even if it's pointless in plotting.
Right.
Whereas stuff like Left Behind, just they don't realize that the signs in the store, they're specifically meant to mimic that sort of thing that some of the people who are watching this movie had been through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Left Behind just like, just make it a thing that we say and then you'll just piece it together, right? And it's like, that's not work. You didn't do work.
Yeah. True.
Especially the Nick Cage one.
Yeah.
There was no work in that.
So I just want to give them a little bit of credit, not a ton.
No, you're right.
Just a little bit of
Yeah.
credit for putting in some thought into their stupid, terrible movie.
Yeah, there's a reason they were the first.
There's a reason they're the first, and everyone copied them.
Yeah.
But Patty gets her soul saved by chasing after her friends like she's a dog, and
Yeah.
they're in a car. So the Unite guy, who represents the world, announces that anyone without the Mark of the Beast is now subject to arrest. And Patty laments her choice not to go ahead and get it, because now she's going to be arrested. But of course, while she's, hunched over, crying to herself about, why didn't I just get the mark instead of chasing after my friends like a weirdo? They were in a car. I didn't even find them. She gets a knock on her door, and she looks out the window to see that there's a Unite van outside her house. So apparently, they know that she doesn't have the mark, and they're here to get her.
She's on a list.
Seconds after the world broadcast.
Right.
You're like, all right.
She's number 1 on the list.
Immediate action.
Yes.
And so she books it to the old church instead of answering the door. And inside, she finds her old pastor praying and asking God if he's really gone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the former reasonable pastor who was saying, like, the actual specific beliefs don't matter as long as you are a decent human who does good for other people.
Right.
And again, he made too much sense.
Yeah.
So he's bad. And now he talks to Patty, and he talks about how he regrets how many he's led astray, and how many people have been left behind just because of him. And he can't even eat or sleep. He only thinks about the faces of everyone he's failed. It's like, finally, at least, he gets his comeuppance of knowing that he is a false prophet and a horrible person.
I felt like that was such a plot twist when she ran into that church. Like, he's there!
It's my old
sad
preacher.
for him.
He was
It is sad.
It is.
He dedicated his whole life to this thing.
I
And
But he didn't do it the exact right way. The one way.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. We can give this movie some credit for the ideas, except we can also say that a lot of the ideas are gross.
Yeah. Terrible for humans.
But the two of them, the preacher and Patty, are rounded up by a Unite henchman, and now it's time for Patty to be talked to by an old woman. Because she's trying to convince her that Unite isn't just some global evil.
Right.
It's just here to help.
know. Yeah.
You
She
can always
says-
trust an old lady.
That's right. She
The
says,
jail keeper.
Right.
you know, every explanation for the emergency has been explored by a computer. Which is exactly what old people would say, by the way.
And I imagine like a computer like from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
It's like that big one that just turned down a number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she says, the Christian answer, the rapture, it's been ruled out. And besides, does this look like a 666 to you?
Yeah, kind of, actually.
Yeah, it's the same symbol 3 times.
Right.
Like, if you're gonna say it's not that, at least make it better than just not a literal 6.
Do you know,
It's
was
stupid.
that Morse code for 666?
Well, Patty says...
I didn't look it up.
Patty says, I'm not a fucking idiot. She doesn't say the fucking. She says, I'm not a moron. It's obviously just a computer readout for 666.
Yeah.
Again, it's the same symbol repeated 3 times. If I'm the Antichrist, and I have to come up with the 666 symbol because I'm apparently have to and don't have a choice in the matter, I'm going to come up with some, like, cool equation that still spells 666 but doesn't look like the same thing 3 times. It's not that complicated.
Right.
But they're like, well, it doesn't look like a literal 6, so, like, could you really say? Like, it's the same thing 3 times.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a fucking 1. It's clearly.
It could be, it could be in hieroglyphics, but it could, still, same.
Like, come up with something a little more clever than that.
Right.
Oh, that's a good type 2 idea. Hieroglyphics in 666.
That'd be pretty cool.
On the forehead.
Yes.
But now the old lady tells her, you know, that pastor you came in with, she's gone ahead and realized that Unite is not the beast. And so Patty is like, I should go out and see him, talk to him, be like, hey, preacher man, what you talking about? I thought we agreed on this.
What's the news telling me what's happening? Buzz telling me what's happening.
But so Patty comes out of her cell, and when she comes out, she finds that the preacher is dead instead. He's been shot in the face. Because he sees a little small pool of blood in his corpse. And why they let her out of her cell, it's unclear, but Patty begins to run away, and through being slight of frame and slower than all of her captors, she manages to escape.
She begins to run away for the rest of the movie.
Yes.
Seriously.
But
this is where my brother was sitting next to me, and we were both just laughing. And every new scene of her running was funnier than the last.
Yeah.
It's like I said,
great.
she gets out of this building by being slight of frame and slower than everybody around her, except for the old woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you can see, it's like a movie where someone slow is being chased by someone fast.
Yeah.
But the slow person is supposed to escape.
Right.
So you can see the stuntman behind them running slower. And it's like you can tell they can go faster.
Yeah, or they just get
Okay.
lazy and just make it Michael Myers. But like, he just appears, but he just stands there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Columbiana is a great example of this.
Who?
Because Columbiana, the Zoe Saldana movie from a few years ago,
I did not see it.
it wasn't good. But the very beginning, 9-year-old Columbiana, or whatever her name is running from a grown-ass man. And she escapes.
Yeah.
But she's 9. So, like, you can see in the movie, he's basically, like, just slightly
Lumbering.
jogging at one point, and this kid is booking it as fast as she can, but she's a small child.
Right.
So it's just, like, there's suddenly distance appears between them because they tried to edit it out, but it's
Yeah.
like, you've got to come up with a better way.
Speed is only one of the factors working against this girl.
Right.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Okay, but Patty manages to escape, and so now she heads out into the streets where she's a fugitive from the law. And there's, 3 scenes of just her running away from people?
3.
Is there more?
It's the whole rest of the movie.
No, before we get to the next part of what I'm going to say.
Oh, okay. Then yes. There was a minimum of 3 scenes.
Because she calls Diane from a payphone.
Right.
That's what I'm skipping
Get
to.
to Diane.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I should call Diane. So she heads to a payphone, and she calls her and is told to go to the dam
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah.
And so she's in a payphone booth talking to Diane about
Question.
the dam. Yeah.
Cell phones do exist. Where was Diane just sitting waiting by a phone?
I mean,
Like, if she called Diane's house, what's the likelihood that Diane would actually be there at that exact moment when all of this shit's going down?
yeah, I don't know. I guess she's lucky. Maybe it was her husband. Or her Frankenstein monster called whatever his name was.
I mean,
Mutton chop guy.
either way, she has like a quarter on her.
Yeah.
You call the one house you know.
But yeah,
There's
so...
no answer. You're fucked.
Because before she calls Diane, there's at least 1 or 2 scenes, at least, where she's just like, I should run over here. Oh, that didn't work. I should run over here. Oh, that didn't work. And it's like this repeated and
The
repeated.
van is like screeching. Like.
And while she's in this payphone, we see a Unite henchman gets out of his van and slowly walks over to her, very intimidatingly.
Yes.
He swings his whole shoulders around as he's walking. And so she's just like, I gotta get out of here before he catches me, but I gotta make this call. It's really, really stupid. And so, for whatever reason, Patty has to go to the dam. So she runs off again. Suspenseful music suspends us with suspense.
Yes. Pretty intense music.
It was giving me anxiety.
Yeah.
How annoying it was.
And repetitive.
But of course, she gets out of the self payphone booth just as the henchman gets to her. So she actually gets behind him and steals his van. And so she has a Unite van that she gets to drive around, and she's being chased by a helicopter.
Helicopter number 3.
Yeah, there was a helicopter budget.
Yeah.
And I zoned out a little bit, to be honest, during this chase scene.
I did play solitaire, and then occasionally would look up and laugh, and laugh. And then my brother came down, and we just watched it and laughed. Yeah.
But eventually, Patty winds up on foot along some train tracks where she is still being hunted by the helicopter.
She runs through forestry of some sort.
Yeah.
And the helicopter loses her when she does that for like brief moments. So she thinks, "Oh, I did it," and then she goes back onto the road, back out in the open, and is surprised when the helicopter finds her again. She runs on the path out in the open until she tries to hide behind a log, not under a log, where in helicopter maybe wouldn't be able to see her. She ducks behind a log when there's a helicopter chasing her. Mm-hmm. And do we want to talk about where she actually really escaped from them?
Yeah.
Which is by walking over a bridge. She's on a bridge that's a train track.
Yeah.
The helicopter's behind her. She's clearly visible. Yeah. She just crouches. And then they're like, well, I don't know. Where did she go? And then they disappeared. They were gone. She just crouched a little bit. And I'm guessing it's because everybody dresses in only brown in the 70s that she just became like one with the wood.
I am one with the wood.
She started to look like the train track. I don't know. Does that not bother anybody else? I rewound it.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I had to watch it over and over again. Like, what is happening? Like, are they confused? Are they looking at her? Are they making fun of her like we are? Like, if they're like, does this bitch think we can't see her? Yeah. Like, that's what I thought they were talking about.
I thought it was on purpose, where they were setting her up for the next scene.
Yeah.
Like, a false sense of security.
I guess, but why even follow her in the helicopter
Who knows,
if
man?
they just wanted her to be at the...
Yeah.
I don't know. This is so dumb.
Let's talk about the next scene. Because the helicopter does eventually turn and leave. And Patty, I thought Patty herself seemed confused. She's like, why are they just turning around? Okay.
Yeah.
But she goes to the dam and she's triumphant, only to find out that her friend Diane and her monster of a husband or boyfriend or whatever have also betrayed Jesus and joined UNIT. And so they turn her in. Yeah. And she's now surrounded on this dam, surrounded by her enemies. And she tries to escape. She sort of goes under to the little patio of the dam.
Yeah, we get to watch her slowly and awkwardly climb over.
I swear she looks like she melts down the thing. Because she's standing and she's just sort of like...
Are you sure you're coming after me?
They really, they show her climbing over more than one fence during this whole scenario.
Yeah, and they should not show her climb fences.
She is not athletic. This is a girl holding on and slowly getting her leg over, and then maybe crotch, and then slowly rolling over the other side.
She's like, oh, fence! I didn't know you were so well endowed.
Ow! Yeah, splinters. Ugh.
But it gets down to the bottom near the water, I don't know, and monster boyfriend is coming for her, and so she eventually is thrown into the water below.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so
he's coming for her by walking excruciatingly slow, inches from her face.
Yes, so Patty's dead. Very sad. But now we get the plot twist ending, because Patty wakes up again, just like the scene from the first scene, and we reveal that the entire movie was just a dream. But she wakes up in the same scenario of the beginning of the movie, so now the rapture really has come.
No.
And she just got up from a prophetic dream of the future.
That's not it.
That is what happened.
No, it's Groundhog's Day.
Oh, she's stuck in the loop.
She can't die. She's not, she can't go to heaven. Otherwise people just be killing themselves left and right. She dies, and then gets put right back at the beginning, like Happy Death Day.
That could be it. I don't think that's what they were going for.
100% it. Yeah, that was not a prophesized thing. That was her accepting that, there's no way out of this.
Well, we will probably end up seeing. So let's figure that out. But now she's even more upset about her fate this time, because I think she knows what's coming. And if she doesn't, she seems to have some memory. Well, she knows it's coming
because she already lived it.
Right.
In my opinion.
But I think, she's really upset, but at least she knows not to trust Diane.
Yeah.
So,
best friend turned on her.
Silver lining.
Also, now she gets to do the Groundhog Day thing, and she can just fuck with people and set things on fire and go run amok and just know if she shoots herself in the head, she gets to start all over again.
That's right. Yeah. So let's talk about the best and let's talk about the worst.
Okay.
What's the best? What's the worst? Everybody. My best is easy.
Go.
short. This movie is 65 minutes.
Doesn't feel like it, Josh.
It does not, but at least it only is.
True.
Yeah.
That's very true.
You have no idea how many movies are 2 hours long, and I want to die.
I know how many. I was there too.
Yeah, you were there too. What else? What's the best?
My best would be that this entire movie is just uggos.
That's your favorite?
I loved it. Every person looked like they got hit in the face with a bat. Dressed by the grandma. And just woke up.
Yeah.
What's the best, Hannah?
Yeah, I think the hilarity of it. Yeah. Like, just how weird everyone looked and the scenes cutting from...
Yeah.
That's
it's not
funny.
just looks, too. It's like looks and sounds. Like, their voices are fucking weird. Their faces are weird. Their hair, clothes, what's happening.
I laughed a lot more than I thought I would, so...
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So that's actually funny that that's your best, because that's what I was going to choose for worst.
Oh, really?
Everyone is so terrible to look at.
The best is the worst, really.
Yeah. But like, every time a new person came on screen, I would just look at him for a second and be like, what is wrong with this human?
Right.
Did people look different in the 70s?
I mean, they did.
Yes,
but, like,
real.
yeah. I guess orthodonture didn't really come into to its own for a while.
So that's what I had there. What's your worst?
Worst would be... I just don't like the aesthetic of the 70s. I hate brown.
Okay, yeah.
Despite the fact that the look was the funniest thing to me, and funny is always my favorite.
The aesthetic was bad.
It's just so ugly.
Yeah.
Like the 70s were ugly cars, ugly decor, ugly clothing. I just hate it, and it is not appealing to my eyeballs. So that'll probably be my worst.
Your best literally is your worst.
Yeah, it's true. There's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
What's yours?
The worst. God. Probably just the message of it, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
The fear-inducing, you know.
Yeah.
That's true. As you said, this thing traumatized you. The series did, if not this one movie.
Which this is like the best out of all four of them.
We're easing in.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, so that's good times for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about
You didn't say
things.
your worst. Oh, you did. That's right.
Let's talk about things that are like this. Do we have anything like this that we'd like to recommend over this? Because this sucks, right?
I do, actually.
Okay.
And by like this, I mean, it's not like this.
It's not remotely similar.
But the whole time I was watching it, I was wishing that I was watching Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are especially there's plenty of great, terrible movies from the 70s.
Yeah.
That get ripped apart on Mystery Science Theater. And I wish this was one of them, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like, it would have been even more hilarious.
Mm.
All right. My thing is that, honestly, we've done so much bullshit like this at this point that I don't see what the point of saying anything is like this. So I'm going to say nothing. Or maybe part 2.
Yeah.
Called what is the second one called? It's not called Thief in the Night 2. It's called something else.
It's like Prodigal Planet.
Prodigal Planet's the fourth one. Whatever,
They're
we'll
all
get
very interesting names, yeah.
there. All right, so do you have anything like this that you'd like to advise over this?
Absolutely not.
It doesn't even have to be like this. How about this? What's something you enjoy?
Yeah, just a single thing you like.
Okay.
What are you into right now? What have you been enjoying in life recently?
Baking.
Oh.
There you go.
Baking.
Follow
Baking's
Hannah's
great.
baking Instagram.
No, just bake some stuff. Don't watch this. Bake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do anything else.
Yeah.
Make yourself food.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, so Hillary, we're going to talk about what we're doing next week.
Josh, what are we doing next week?
Have it written down here.
Okay, we'll look at it. Superbook.
Superbook.
Another
Do you know Superbook?
superhero thing?
Of course I know Superbook.
Oh, I don't. I've never seen Superbook. I just know
Whoa,
it.
you knew something that Josh didn't.
Whoa.
In this genre.
Whoa.
That's huge.
That is huge.
I just know it's a kid's show about the Bible.
Oh, it's fun.
What decade?
It's got to be at least the 2000s because it's computer animated.
Oh, no.
Oh,
there's a remake that I found out about, but the original is probably 70s, 80s.
Oh.
Okay, that's amazing.
It's like anime, but Christian anime. It's actually really cool.
Okay.
I watched it.
Wait, is
Big
this...
surprise. I watched it growing up. Yeah, let me see.
Okay, so but we are watching the more recent.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I didn't know there was another one.
I've never seen them.
But now it's going to go on the list, so in the next few months, get ready for that.
Groovy. I like watching the old stuff, too. I'm actually looking at pictures right now, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to do Superbook. We'll find out what it's about. And remember, as always, if you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app or service you are using. And tell your friends about us any way that you can. Your enemies too, your parents, your coworkers, whatever. We need the attention.
Yes.
Links to everything are in the description of this episode. And you can go to the website that's linked there and send us a comment or a question for our inevitable mailbag. Hannah, do you have anything you'd like to plug or talk about?
No.
Do you want people to follow you on Twitter? Follow you on Instagram?
No.
Okay.
Unless you're my friend.
Yeah,
Just listen to
That
this.
is correct.
Listen to the podcast.
You said the correct thing.
Yeah, that's the right way.
Yeah.
So as always, thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
We love ya.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.